Story 1. My rural school offered these classes in the 2000s. Home economics, sewing, taxes, cooking, woodworking, metalworking, accounting, quilting, pottery, and more. Story 2. I would be opposed to the extra hour, though not to the activities. School was already an 8-hour day commitment. Increasing it to 9 hours makes it longer than a full-time job. And that is before you add homework and similar tasks. Story 3. They already do that. It is called life skills here. 8 hours? It is only 6 here and we get it done. What the heck? Are you wasting 3 hours every day? Story 4. Schools already offer these programs, but students often do not pay attention because the material does not feel immediately relevant to their lives. It is like explaining the do's and don'ts of denture cream. People think, I'll figure it out later when I need it, and stop listening. I have taught in several schools that tried to teach social skills, kindness, meditation, financial literacy, and similar topics. In every case, students treated those lessons as a waste of time and ranked them among their least favorite parts of the day. The point of education is to teach how to think, not just how to do things. A well-educated student can teach themselves many practical skills. A quick internet search can show you how to file taxes or cook a meal, but you cannot learn Algebra 2 by searching online and expect to understand advanced material without background knowledge. People often refuse to take responsibility, saying, I cannot cook. The school should fix that. Misses the point. It is your responsibility to learn practical skills. You can find a recipe or instructions in seconds. Education is not merely about memorizing facts. It is about changing the way your brain thinks. Physics and mathematics majors tend to score highest on the medical college admission test, the graduate management admission test, and the law school admission test because their coursework emphasizes logical thinking. When students slack in school, they do not just miss facts. They miss opportunities to become smarter. Story 5. My public school had classes that taught these things. I graduated from high school a decade ago. I took home economics and learned how to cook. I took financial literacy to learn about taxes, budgeting, and investing. Is Utah just way ahead of the other states, or is this a made-up issue? I have seen people who took these classes at my school post memes about not learning how to pay taxes and other practical matters. I wonder if the real problem is that nobody remembers this stuff because it is taught when it is not directly relevant to their lives. Story 6. When your grandparents were in school, girls took home economics classes and boys took shop or trades classes. Every once in a while, a student of the opposite sex would sign up for and take the wrong class, much to the amusement of everyone. Do they no longer teach home economics or offer shop classes? Story 7. I think schools already waste enough time, and it would be worse for children whose parents have already taught them those skills. Washing clothes is really a 20-minute lesson, and cooking and taxes have their own elective classes already. Story 8. Washing clothes is simple. Put the clothes in the machine, add detergent, push a button, then use a dryer or hang them to dry. If someone cannot manage basic tasks like washing clothes or cooking, they should not be allowed to drive. Taxes, debt, and personal finance are subjects that should be taught. Story 9. It is so funny how many of you think that children will actually be interested in learning about taxes, stocks, and so on. In what world do you imagine high school students being attentive in a class about budgeting and taxes? Have any of you met high school students before? Story 10. This was once called home economics, and most schools offered it. Baby boomers eliminated it because it cost too much. Now they make fun of young people for not knowing things that would have been taught in it. Story 11. I am opposed to it. There is no reason parents cannot teach these skills to their children while performing the tasks. School is not responsible for everything. Also, with the internet, if a parent does not know how to change a tire, they can easily learn. Story 12. This is information anyone can find online or learn from someone at home. How to write a check, boil an egg, change a tire, or get prescriptions filled. It is surprising that students will sit for hours at school to passively listen to this when being an adult often simply means taking the time to look things up and learn on your own. As an adult, you decide how much time to spend on any of these tasks. Learning to cook does not require becoming a chef. It means being able to feed yourself reasonably nutritious food that you enjoy. You can learn to bake a quiche if you like, or just learn to fry eggs in 2 minutes. The choice is yours. It is okay if you do not want to learn to do your taxes. If you have only one job and no property or business, filing taxes can be straightforward and may be worth learning in a couple of hours. There is no need to buy a sewing machine to alter your clothes unless you intend to make it a hobby. Anyone can buy an inexpensive sewing kit and learn to sew on a button. It takes only a few minutes and can be useful. There are no prescribed skills required to be an adult. Do the best you can with what you have, learn new things when needed, and decide how you want to do it. Story 13. Many everyday tasks can be learned independently by doing them. Taxes are almost foolproof in most cases because they are designed to be. Washing clothes. Follow the instruction manual. Cooking. Watch a video or follow a recipe. What these have in common is the need for solid numeracy and literacy. These core skills must be explicitly taught because they underpin almost everything. People who complain about not being taught how to do their taxes often have poor numeracy. People who struggle to fill out a form often have poor literacy. If someone cannot read instructions, that is a literacy issue. I say this as a teacher. We work hard to make education relevant to real-world needs, but a person must become fluent in reading and writing and be able to think mathematically to cope in the real world. The rest of education is about teaching how to learn effectively, how to think in different ways, how to adapt to unfamiliar challenges, and how to deal with abstract ideas. We do not teach the model of the atom so you can recite facts. We teach it so you can grasp concepts that are not directly observable, draw logical conclusions, and apply abstract ideas to real phenomena. The actual topics are vehicles for these skills. Story 14. Those are the things a competent parent should teach their child. Story 15. I think it's ridiculous that washing clothes and basic cooking would be considered adult stuff. These are things I learned at home and was doing for myself by high school. Are other people's parents really just doing all of this for them? Story 16. Parents must take responsibility for having children. Cooking has largely been removed from school curricula because of safety concerns. If a child drops raw chicken on the floor and picks it up, or spills boiling water, schools could be sued. Regarding taxes, would it not be better to teach children how governments use tax revenue? Story 17. Here is the deal about paying taxes. Tax rules change every year. Taxes are difficult by design, even though they do not need to be. Instead, teach critical thinking and reading comprehension. Story 18. Japanese schools do this to some extent. Students are responsible for cleaning the classroom and serving lunch to their classmates. It would be a good idea if it is well explained and supported by the community. Otherwise, the school risks parents becoming very upset, think Karens, and who knows what else. Story 19. I would say the parents should do that. Why have the child if you expect teachers to raise them? Story 20. You mean things parents should teach their children without relying on others? People often say, you teach them because I do not want to, do not have the time, or do not know how. How about we teach people how to be parents without involving religion or politics? How about we teach people how not to be parents if they do not want to be? How about we build a strong middle class so parents have the time and energy to teach their children what they need to know while still being able to pay rent and feed themselves? Life is hard. Story 21. I disagree. This material should be taught in school rather than added on. Story 22. I am frustrated by how many people do not understand that school is not supposed to spoon-feed every piece of information you will need as an adult. School should teach you how to learn, think critically and logically, and be resourceful, among other things that help you be self-sufficient. If anything, the overemphasis on testing causes this kind of learning to take a back seat and instead teaches students how to take tests that do not assess these abilities. Story 23. Opposed. 1 hour every day for 4, 8, or 12 years is just way too high. Make it a mandatory elective. Take 2 in high school, totaling 1 year. I took woodshop, mechanical design, architecture, art, and economics as electives. Remove 2 of those and you could add a home life understanding course or something. Also, people mention home economics. I had that and it was useless. Over 5 months we only made awful cookies and, from October to December, a gingerbread house. I have no idea how, but it is true. Story 24. Definitely not. The school day is long enough already, and it would be very costly to add another hour. Home economics should be available as an elective. However, many students learn basic skills from their parents. For students who have done laundry and cooking for years as regular chores, it would be frustrating and wasteful to require a mandatory class. I agree that basic money management should be taught, but that can be covered in math class. I remember calculating interest and keeping a practice budget as homework. Story 25. Do not forget civics. We need to start teaching civics again so people learn how bills and elections work and understand that there is nothing mysterious about them. Story 26. They already do this in the United Kingdom for people with lower academic ability. Story 27. We had industrial arts, home economics, consumer economics, and adult living as required classes in middle school and high school. I remember doing a project on generic versus name brand products. In hindsight, we could have used ongoing classes that teach how to fix household electronics and how to manage a home. I really appreciate the Korean and Japanese practice of having schoolchildren care for their schools. They do not employ janitors. All students are required to perform these tasks. Story 28. I think these are things that parents should teach their children. Story 29. My children learned those skills at home. I did not learn anything at home. I was self-taught because I received little education due to neglect. I needed to learn, and for the most part, if you can read instructions, you can do it. Today, there is YouTube and similar resources. I do not understand why people cannot do laundry or cook if they can read. My children all took home economics and sewing, so isn't it already covered? My first thought is that such a class would be boring for students who do not need it, but an easy credit and helpful for those who do. An extra hour every day adds up, though, and would not be worth it if unnecessary. Since we moved to a different state, the education here has been shockingly poor. We have been blown away by the lack of learning and by efforts to push students through the system at all costs. My son came home laughing on his first day because tests here are not actually tests. The teacher shares the answers when someone raises their hand. It is crazy. My daughter had an assignment on her third day here about a subject she had no knowledge of because she entered midterm. She should have failed or had to redo it after studying. She only got a 56, but the teacher gave her a B+ with some story about knowing half of it anyway. That is not right. She does not learn the subject if she is being pushed through. Something needs to be done, but I do not have answers. I am very concerned about children growing up in this type of school system. They can barely read. Maybe that is half the problem. Story 30. Just another excuse for neglectful parents to leave all the hard work of teaching their children to others. Story 31. Good idea, but there is probably unnecessary material they could remove for basic life skills instead of adding an extra hour. Story 32. 1. I just realized there is a generation that does not know what home economics and civics classes are. 2. You should know how to wash clothes because your parents should teach you those skills. 3. Unfortunately, public education in the United States is wildly underfunded, and some things are not the school's responsibility to teach, like washing clothes and cooking basic meals. Story 33. You mean home economics? That is what home economics was in my area. It was an elective, but most people took it instead of an extra math or history. Also, what about children who already do those tasks at home? I doubt those children want the same work both at school and at home. Story 34. That was called home economics about 25 years ago when I was in high school. Everyone had to take the class. I thought it was pretty decent. Story 35. How about teaching financial literacy and media literacy? In today's world, it would do wonders for society if the next generation could avoid taking on too much debt and buying into misinformation and conspiracy theories. Just imagine. Story 36. Repost by somebody else. I see this "we should have learned real life skills in school" idea a lot, and I want to address it. This is not an attack on you, but on the sentiment you expressed. You did learn accounting and budgeting for a house in first grade when you learned how to add and subtract. By sixth grade, you had mastered four-digit addition and subtraction, which is enough to construct a basic budget. If you want to extrapolate monthly income to yearly goals, the multiplication you learned by 7th grade will do the trick. To estimate interest on savings, that same multiplication with a little understanding of fractions is sufficient. What school cannot teach, though, is the willpower to sit down, write a budget, and stick to it. School tries to instill this indirectly through points, grades, and deadlines, but the lesson does not transfer easily for some people. Next, how to build credit. School could teach the formula for calculating your Fair Isaac Corporation credit score, but you would need much of the algebra taught in Algebra 2 to do it well. Carrying large balances relative to your credit limit, applying for a lot of credit in a short time, and paying bills late all hurt your credit. Applying for limited credit, spacing out applications, using credit responsibly, and paying on time builds your credit. Now, what are we going to do with the remaining 45 minutes of the period? Schools do help you practice these skills. A student who turns in work late often gets a bad grade, while a student who consistently makes a good faith effort may see a 79 turn into an 80. Good behavior earns you credit. Bad behavior burns your credit. Taxes. Schools could have better prepared you to do your own taxes by making assignment instructions more convoluted and by requiring you to locate and fill out multiple separate forms, two of which would force you to dig through piles of old work. I am sure no one would have complained. How to apply for a loan. Step 1. Call the lending institution. Step 2. Say you would like to borrow money. Step 3. Answer a bunch of questions, including what your social security number is and your total yearly income. Step 4. Get approved or declined. No one really reads your resume. It is one page, and most employers know it is often exaggerated. The cover letter is not much better, but both should be tailored to the specific workplace. Tailoring your writing to a specific audience or task is one of the main skills English class tries to teach. Here is the bottom line. You are right that much of what matters in life you must learn on your own. School cannot give you all the knowledge you will ever need, especially in a rapidly changing world. The best school can do is train your brain to deal with complex, abstract concepts and apply those skills to specific tasks. School can teach you how to learn. Algebra and literary analysis are the substance of how that is done. It is not important to be able to list the major character flaws of Macbeth. It is far more important to take an obtuse document like Shakespeare or the tax code and make sense of it. It is more important to think about a person who got everything they wanted and was still unhappy, and what that means for your life. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.